we are back with another edition of Digging Deep. I'm once again joined by Joe Gravel. So we've got an exciting one on our hands. So we were trying to come up with some ideas of what different things we could do for Digging Deep. Obviously, the fight announcement, and then breaking down main event. I really like this one because it's matchmaking, but it's for a specific fighter. And I know how much you like Brian Boom Kelleher. I like him as well, but you've got an obsession with the guy. So I'm really, really excited for this one. So essentially all we're doing is picking some of the guys that we think are best suited for Boom. And just a brief rundown, he was supposed to fight Ricky Simone. That fight got scrapped. Ricky Simone has another opponent, and Brian Boom Kelleher has been actively tweeting he wants an opponent. So we thought we'd go ahead and try to find some. And here is our list. So we've got Brian Kelleher, 22-11, very experienced. He's 34 years of age, 5'6". Obviously competes at Bantamweight, 64-inch reach. And here are some of the potential opponents we came up with.
Looks good.
All right. So on that list, there's a couple names that stand out to me. I want to go first and just throw these out there because I know you're going to dive into this a lot more than I am. I have there's the one I really liked, and a lot of people I think are overlooking this, is Uriah Faber. And the reason why I picked him is both of them are very, very experienced. And Uriah Faber obviously had that loss to Petr Yan. That was quite devastating, but seeing what Petr Yan's been able to do, it's not really that bad for him. And I do think this is a chance for him to rebound and jump back into the top 15. My other option is Andre Ewell, who is coming on. He's won his last two fights, very, very close. Both were split decision wins. And I think they're kind of both propelling themselves towards the top 15. And I'd love to see those guys scrap as well. And Andre Ewell expressed interest in that fight, and he says he wants to fight 7 times in 2021, which is crazy. So why not? Why not get it started with Boom Kelleher versus Andre Ewell?
Well,
what are your thoughts on those two matchups, and which ones do you have?
The first thing I'd like to say, my little obsession with Brian Kelleher, it starts where I love normal people. And I feel like that's exactly what Boom is. He's just a normal guy, but he's not because he's in the UFC. But when you look at him, I mean, he's in excellent shape right now. He's always swimming. He's always running. I mean, he lives by a strict regimen. He's always training, sparring, doing jiu-jitsu. But when you look at him, I mean, he just seems like a normal guy. He likes to rap. He likes to drink his coffee. You know, he just chills. And he's got his Subaru, and he's cool. He connects with fans. He's very down to earth. So I really like that about him. As for your two matchups, I think Uriah Faber is excellent. I think that's something not a lot of people would think of. It's something I didn't think of until you brought it to my attention. I don't see why Boom wouldn't like it. That's a legend. Faber is one of the main fighters who got me into the sport of MMA back then in the WEC days with the cornrows and the, that energy drink sponsor he had. And I think that would be awesome, man. I think they would match up well together. They both have a similar stature, and both have good ground game, both have good striking. Andre Ewell's always fun. He always brings the fight. He's energetic as hell in there. Same thing with Boom. I could see them fighting a 3-round war, possibly a performance bonus, which brings me to my next point. Brian fought 4 times in 2020. I think if the UFC had let him, he would have fought 7, maybe 8 times. He could have done what Andre Ewell wants to do. He fought 4 times. He lost 1 fight to a tough out in Cody Stammen. He's tough as nails. And in those 4 fights, he won 3 of them. 3 finishes with 3 performance bonuses, 2 performance of the night and a fight of the night. So I think Boom deserves a fight. I'm going to throw a name out there. I think he has deserved Sean O'Malley. I think he does, man. They have the little beef brewing. He said he already wants to roll him up and smoke him. We know what Sean O'Malley can do in the octagon. We know he's talented. We know he's got a good game striking. We know that Brian's going to bring the pressure. I think that would be an excellent matchup. Another name I have would be Nathaniel Wood. He's coming off of a loss, but I really think that their styles would match up well. You know, Nathaniel Wood, look at his fight even with John Dodson. I mean, he's going to stand in the pocket and he's going to bang. And if you do that, Brian's he's going to welcome it. Then we have an undefeated fighter in Jack Shore. I think that would be excellent. He's got a lot of hype behind him. I mean, there's so many good possible matchups for Boom. Look at the list. So any of those, or I would even say I think he would like to entertain a rematch with Marlon Vera. It's a little far removed now. I could see why maybe some fans don't want to see that rematch, but I could see why Boom would love to get that one back. And Marlon Vera's coming off of a loss, but we all know that, you know what I mean? He always brings the fight. So this division's stacked. There's so many good fighters in it. There's so many good possibilities for Brian Kelleher right now.
When you're looking at a timeline, because obviously he was supposed to fight, I believe it was February. Ricky Simone obviously has an opponent. He said he was interested in February 13th. So that's a little bit. I think that's a month away. So when you're looking at that sort of timeline, when you look at the guys that we've listed, Uriah Faber hasn't been in the octagon for a little while. I'm sure he's active. I'm sure he's always down to scrap, but he's probably not likely to have that quick of a turnaround. So if we look at the list of the guys that we've listed, which ones do you think are probably the most likely to stand across the cage come February 13th if they decide to get him on that card?
Chris Gutierrez is a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not one we named, but I could see that being the one that it becomes and us being like, all right, we understand that. We understand that. You know, Gutierrez always looks good. And I think they would match up well together. Or I think Sean O'Malley. I don't see – I mean, if you're going to make the fight, I think now's the time. O'Malley's coming off of a loss. You know, Boom's coming off of that submission victory over Ray Rodriguez. You know, I could see why the UFC could book that early in the year right now while Conor McGregor's, you know, ending this triple header on a pay-per-view headliner. And then, you know, you get another big announcement with Brian Kelleher and Sean O'Malley. Boom's stock has rose. I think a lot more people know who he is now. I think last year he made a big name for himself, kicking off the year with submission over Odie Osborne, coming back in the Hunter Azure fight and knocking him out. Dana White talking to everyone about he's having friends bet on the fight midway through. This all built Boom's story up. I mean, he talks pretty good shit after the fights about, you know, wanting to fight O'Malley. I think that could be it, man.
Yeah, he's really done a lot this year. I mean, obviously, very successful year, 3-1. His only loss was to Cody Stamann, and we know what Cody Stamann's able to do on any given night. The guy's very, very talented. So he's had a hell of a year as well. And I think you even listed him as one of your fighters of the year, even with that loss. And like you said earlier, is how active he is on social media. And I think that could ultimately get him a shot at a Uriah Faber or Sean O'Malley or one of these big names because he's recognizable. People know who he is. So that being said, if you had one pick, if you were the matchmaker, if Dana White called you right now and said, Joe, you've got balls in your court, you pick the fight for Brian Kelleher, which would it be?
I'd give him Uriah Faber. I like your idea the best. It's not my own idea, so I'd love to say O'Malley, but I think your idea is the best, Uriah Faber, because I think at this stage in Faber's career, it's a favorable matchup for Boom if he wants to be intelligent. He takes that fight, he wins, he beats a legend, and then what? I mean, then he's got some real room to call somebody out, whoever he wants. I mean, not whoever he wants, but you get what I'm saying. It gives him a lot of leverage at that point. And what a way to kick the year. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, a lot like Boom is outside of the top 15. And one thing a lot of people don't realize is the guy's 34 years old. So time isn't necessarily in his favor. If he loses to a guy like Sean O'Malley or if he loses to a guy like Andre Ewell, it sets him back quite a bit. And if you lose to a guy like Uriah Faber, you know, it doesn't really matter that much. I mean, you went out there and he's kind of in his last leg of his career. Let the guy have these fights. And I think Uriah Faber fits well. I think Uriah Faber would love that fight too. It really could rebound him into the top 15. If you beat Brian Kelleher after what he did to Hunter Azure, you know, you're right there in the top 15. And who knows if Uriah Faber is even interested in fighting at this point. So maybe it's just a pipe dream, but I love that fight. And that for me is my front runner. But if I can't get that one, Andre Ewell. I love Andre. He was my very, very first interview. So I'm always going to throw his name in the hat. And he wants to stay busy. So those are my two picks, Uriah Faber and Andre Ewell. Joe's were Uriah Faber and Sean O'Malley. So consensus here is Uriah Faber. I love that fight, and hopefully they can get it done.
This, my friend, is why you are the matchmaker. You have great matchmaking skills.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. So we're coming up at 9:30 here. So that is it for this episode. We'll be back again next week with another matchmaking video. If there's anybody you want to see us matchmake, comment in the description. It could be anybody who's currently on the roster, someone who's previously just like re-signed or anything like that. It doesn't even have to be a UFC fighter. We'd love to do it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a big name. Anybody, we are willing to do it. So be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you guys next time.